I went to a group this morning, and there's something that I don't know. He asked us a question. He was like, "Is I forget that like it was like, is there anything that you could like know about God so that what you do know about God doesn't like somehow disappoint you?" It's something along those lines. And I would love to talk, but what I want to say, people don't want. Because the person that was actually giving this sermon message is someone who does not believe for God. Because the thing about God, if you don't want to be disappointed about God, you have to believe. For one, this man could have proved so much more. Like the church, like he had this heart condition and he could have prayed and he would have been healed. But he decided, no, I'm going to cut it short. You know, it was such a miracle that I even found out about my heart condition. And that was enough. That was enough. God somehow miraculously showed me about this condition I have. And that was enough. And then he goes and has a doctor just cut his ribs and tear him open and take this clog out of his arteries or whatever, and now he's more or less okay, but he's not. Because he still doesn't believe. One, he doesn't believe that God could have actually done more. And two, he doesn't actually believe. Because what he gave is this idea. He's like, you know, he was talking about this idea and he's like, we're not saved because of what Christ did. We're saved because we decide to actually kind of have a relationship with God. And that's the same thing the pastor said a few weeks ago, and it's not right. Because what you first have to believe is why you will actually be saved. If you're not somehow getting the conviction that, hey, God's going to save me from this thing that's clogging my arteries, it's because you don't actually know that if he did not save you, like Daniel or his friends, and Daniel in the lion's den, but his friends were like, hey, I believe they believed, even Daniel believed God will save me, but if he doesn't, I'm still not going to do what you tell me. If you actually want, so this man, maybe he wasn't given the conviction that God would save him, so he was like, I'm not sure God's actually going to save me, so I got to get the little open heart, little thingy wingy. the thing. Because he doesn't actually know that he's saved. Because the Old Testament, the people of old were like, I know that God will save me, but if he doesn't, that's okay too. But these people don't actually know it's okay if God doesn't. You know why? What if I'm not saying they're not saved, but some of them are not saved. And those people who are not saved is the same explanation of why you cannot come to an understanding that God will save you. Because these people over here, if they don't truly trust that the reason they're saved is because because of what God did, but you don't actually believe that, then now you can't get that conviction that you don't have to somehow trust that these doctors can save you because you know God will. But God might not actually save you. But these people over here, that's pretty much what's going on. You know, he didn't actually think that God could save him because he doesn't actually know that God saved him. You know, people don't seem to know judge not lest you be judged. And the thing about that is it's not saying don't judge. It's saying if you're going to judge, be careful because God's going to judge you. So, for instance, in this medical argument, you've got two different groups. Maybe more. So you've got this group you've got one group who they judge. If you're not following God, you might not be saved. But if that's your argument going into this, that someone could die, if they have sin in their life, they're going to hell, and now you all of a sudden get a terminal disease, and now you think, oh, I have to go to a doctor, and you don't actually rely on God. God's not going to give you the conviction that, oh, I can't just rely on God, because if you think that someone could go to hell because they have sin in their life, when you in fact have sin in your life, that's what this verse that my pastor just used and that what you all use, and now God is going to use. That it's, oh, you think you're in heaven because you have this, quote, transformed life, but how about these aspects of your life that are not, that still are sinful? Because you cannot be a teller of the truth if you say you have no sin. So you do have sin, but you can't get to heaven unless you have no sin. And it's like, so now God is judging you. If you're not going to get to heaven unless you have this, quote, no sin, or this fully transferred life that's somehow given over to God, then now when you actually get this terminal illness, God's not going to save you, and he's going to tell you to go to these doctors, more or less, because you, if you were to die, according to you, you would actually not Then there's the second group. It says, if they have a sin leading to death, don't pray for such a thing. Their sin is leading to them to death. And it literally says, don't pray for them. If you've got a loved one, maybe who's not saved, and they've got this sin, it specifically says, don't pray for them. Don't pray they'll be healed. Because if they just somehow get over this illness, but they still don't believe, it serves no purpose. Or if they do believe and they have a sin leading to death, it says don't pray for them. That sin is what's leading to them to death. God would love, because that's the thing about the question they asked this morning. They said, why can you believe in God yet not be disappointed? There's these people that what they believe about God leaves them in disappointment, more or less. I forget the question. This is the idea. And it's because if you actually followed God, you could believe in the world. Mountains would move. But when people get these sins that they don't think are sins, and they're dying, it says don't even pray for them. So what happens when people even do pray and they don't get better and they go to their doctors, when in reality it says literally don't even pray for them. So they're like, oh yeah, I need a doctor. But no, there's two groups. One, you don't actually believe you're saved because you have to have no sin to be saved, but you have sin and you never even knew God. And then there are other people who are like, yeah, I'm saved because Christ did, but I don't actually have to follow him. And it's like, whoa there, you have a sin leading to death and I'm not going to pray for you. It says don't pray for you because then your sins lead to death and you need to understand you need to give up your sin and then you would live. I thought I found a church. There's these churches who think you can be saved, but then you can lose it. And then I find this church and they tell me, oh, you cannot lose salvation. And I'm like, oh, that means, okay, yes, yes. And then I find out, but you have to actually. The devil has so dissuaded people from actually believing. Like you can convince a Christian believe in the gospel, but you don't actually have to have works, which you don't. But you're going to have an unfulfilled life, and then you're going to have these people who are so disappointed in God and they blame God for all these things happening to them, when in reality it's them who they have to blame. But they don't get it because they were told, oh, all I have to do is believe, but they're not actually told, oh, you actually have to love him. He's convinced these other people that, oh, you all actually love him. You do what he says, but he didn't actually die. You got these billions of people who believe in God and do what he says, but he never even died. You've also got many, many people who actually kind of believe in him. They believe he died, but they don't know that he died. But they don't know that he died. And you've got these minuscule amount of people who actually believe he died for them and that they should follow him, but they don't actually do